light within my heart, light within my thoughts, light within my words. May one and all and everything, blessed and loved, ever be. Welcome. I am Sister Hu. The human body is perhaps one of the most widely used metaphors in dealing with spiritual sorts of ideas and understandings, perhaps because it's what has been with us the longest, and it's what is most immediate and most obvious to every person, I guess. When we use metaphors of the human body, theoretically, they're metaphors that everyone could understand. One of those, I hear a lot of discussions about liberals and conservatives, and to me, a person is a person is a person. And I'm sure there are some people who would consider me way too liberal and too weird and too off the wall. But surprisingly, there have been people who have insisted that I'm too conservative. And I always kind of look in the mirror and think, too conservative. I had some people once who insisted I wasn't radical enough. And I was like, how much more radical do you want me to be? But in relating and pondering all of that in relation to the basic essence of life, the universal essence of life that manifests in, well, as the Vulcans on Star Trek said, infinite diversity in infinite combination. And thinking about that, the metaphor that comes to mind as far as the liberals and the conservatives is the two hands that every human body, or most human bodies have, with the exception of amputees, of course. And I don't mean any disrespect to them or anything, but I think they'll understand this metaphor just the same. On one hand, you have, if it were conservatives if it were conservatives and liberals, you have the right hand and the left hand, and one says to the other, "You are exactly opposite of me in every way. We are so different. How could we ever live next to each other?" And so it begins to say, well, if it escalates, the one hand might say the other that it's wrong to be different than me, you are wrong, so I'm going to eliminate you. And the other one says, you are different than me, so you are wrong and I'm going to eliminate you. And so the two want to engage in some sort of combat or annihilation or something. And behind all of that, all the other aspects of life witness this bizarre conflict and basically respond like Olympia Dukakis' character in the movie Steel Magnolias. No, correction, it was Dolly Parton's character who said it to Olympia Dukakis' character that at one point, Clary, the character in the movie, is wanting to diffuse an overly tense situation. And so she resorts to a very comedic and absurd situation. And of course, everybody winds up laughing and it breaks the tension. But at the beginning of all that, Clary starts this interchange and Dolly Parton looks at her and says, "Clary, have you lost your mind?" And I always think of that scene when I think of the right hand and the left hand battling for dominance over who should be the motif of how things are supposed to be, instead of recognizing that they're intended to be complementary, and there are so many things that cannot be done without the two of them working together, even though they are absolutely opposites and completely the reverse of everything in every way. And yet, thinking in terms of opposites, there's also the possibility of each one being a mirror for the other. That the liberals allow the conservatives to see things about themselves that they might not otherwise see. And the conservatives allow the liberals to see things about themselves that they might not otherwise see, but only if the two are in constructive, harmonious, mutually respectful dialogue. In some ways, and I'm generalizing here, which is never a wise thing to do, but if the conservatives were the ones in charge of maintaining political and economic stability, that would be a way of grounding the human experience. And if the liberals were in charge of healing and renewal and developing all the different new ways that humanity could grow and develop, I mean, if it weren't for the liberals, people who are willing to think outside the box, would we ever have the inventions of the airplane and the light bulb and ships and all sorts of other things that simply wouldn't exist if we didn't have somebody thinking outside the box of conservative thinking, thinking beyond what has ever been, thinking of what could be but has never yet been invented. And it's that ingenuity, those flights of fancy, those imaginations, I think it would be classified as a country western song, but it's a wonderful pondering that I think Christians would do well to really listen to the words. The song, "What If God Were One of Us?" Trying to find his way home. And this bizarre world that humanity has created because the right hand is fighting the left because you're so different than I am, you're so opposite of me in every way, you couldn't possibly be right. I mean, it's, if they actually take up arms and begin battling each other because the right hand wants the left hand to be more like the right hand and the left hand wants the right hand to be more like the left hand. And going to arms and fighting with each other. And I saw a bumper sticker once that wisely observed, war doesn't determine who's right, it only determines who's left. But if from the very beginning, whether God or the universe or ourselves, however you want to term it, there is something bigger than our current level of thinking and comprehension that wants everything to be harmonious and that understands it was meant to work together, that the two hands working together is why I can even pick up things and move things. And there are so many things that are too much for one hand to be able to manage. It takes both hands working together to do it. I sew some of my own clothes, and that would be impossible as far as I know. I suppose there are some amputees who have figured out how to do it, but in the way I'm accustomed to sewing on my sewing machine, in order to make this ritual garb, I had to use both hands. I had to use, if you will, the conservative and the liberal working together mutually, in mutual respect, respecting each other, but each one doing what it could and emphasizing those areas in which it is most gifted and allowing the other one to do the areas in which it is most gifted. Because of my autism, I can't cook. My interaction with life depends upon precise numbers in those sorts of situations. So I use a microwave that I can push in the numbers. But if I had to try to cook anything on the stove, excuse me, if I had to try to cook anything on the stove, it would be very difficult because I never know how to answer how much is enough. When is it done? Well, it's some vague interpretation of circumstances. It's when it looks like this, or it acts like that, or when you see the water boil. Well, there's actually a bit of a spectrum for when the water boils, when it starts to boil or when it's a full rolling boil, and which is more preferable to which kind of food. I don't know. I need to have somebody, if I'm ever going to have those things, I need to have somebody else do that kind of cooking for me because that's not something I can do. On the other hand, that person might want to do a TV show on public access television and have no idea how to create a set. And I would ask, so how do you want the set to look? What color do you want it to be? How big does it need to be? All the different bits of information. And I would put them all together and I could create a set for a TV show quite easily because that's where I have a skill set that is beneficial. And so, like the two hands, the ideal is that it would be complementary. The conservatives would want the liberals to be, with integrity, the liberals that they are. And the liberals would want the conservatives to be, with integrity, the conservatives that they are. It's looking in the mirror and deciding what shoe fits and what shoes are the right size for my feet, what methods are the right size for me. If I'm going to do a holiday costume, it's going to fall within certain parameters because going beyond that doesn't have any integrity for me. If I'm getting into relationships, for me to have a romantic relationship with a woman would have no integrity because I'm gay. It would be as anomalous, I suppose, as a straight man trying to have a relationship with a gay man. That there's some part of the self that has to be denied and repressed in order to do that. A lot of the biblical passages within Christianity are often misinterpreted for that reason, because previous civilizations would look at the imperative of reproducing, and one of their values was that fertility was so important that there are some of the most lavish and, from our perspective, absurd rituals that were created for the sake of trying to encourage fertility in humanity, and making guesses about what the divine wanted in order to bless humanity with fertility. And I have to think it would have been a very psychologically and emotionally damaging time for a straight man to be present, to participate in a fertility ritual that involves men with other men, because that would really only be appropriate for gay men. And for a straight man to participate in a fertility ritual that involved some sort of a sexual intimacy with other men would be acting against his nature. But my understanding is that there were fertility rituals that required things that we now consider absurd. The problem I get, well, and in a way it's a form of religious abuse, but we don't know exactly what forms religious abuse took in the past. But in my interpretation, if you will, those verses in the Bible that talk about not doing this or not doing that are not talking about two people of the same gender falling in love and committing themselves to each other for life. They're talking about doing fertility rituals that would take people away from the integrity of who and what they were. That you're supposed to do this ritual and act it out because this is what pleases the divine, they thought, and this is what will bless humanity with fertility so that the human race can go on. And in a similar sort of way within modern times, there are religions that require certain actions to be repeated over and over and over again, even if they don't mean anything to the people who are doing them. And that, again, is the same basic dynamic that is still wrong. People acting in ways that don't confirm what they believe, that are not what they believe. So they're having to act in ways that are contrary to their personal integrity for the sake of some religious dogma that has been imposed upon them, which I suppose is why I more often opt for spirituality rather than religion. Religion attempts to find one-size-fits-all answers that it can impose upon everyone and say, this is what everyone will experience, as if there were only one kind of person and only one approach to spirituality. Spirituality, in my sense, begins on the inside and grows outward in this hunger, if you will, to have connection with that which is beyond us, to, even if we never understand the divine and experience it mostly as divine mystery, even if it's about the mysteries of the universe to which we give no name, to which we assign no human qualities, but simply to say there is something beyond our comprehension that seems to have wisdom that surpasses current human understanding, which is why we're always discovering new things and learning new things. And before the discovery of quantum physics, all the things that fall within quantum physics would have been written off as witchcraft, which the word witchcraft does not refer to practitioners of Wicca. It refers to anything that couldn't be explained by people of that time. If they didn't know what else to call it and it was mystery, they would call it witchcraft, by which they were specifically labeling that which is not understood as bad, instead of saying, maybe I just need to ask more questions. Maybe I need to respect the fact that as a human being, I don't know everything, and I'm still learning and growing, but I don't want this to be the end, to say that what humanity now knows is all humanity will ever know, and the theological constructions that have been formed, that those will be the limit of the human-divine relationship, instead of whether atheist, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, whatever, to say, I am going to relate to that which is truly divine, and I understand that it will probably be mostly wrapped in mystery for the duration of my life. And there are certain practices that the religions have proposed which may or may not be helpful to me. Only I can decide whether those shoes fit my feet. And there may be religious practices that are mostly helpful to me, and so I'll go along with the bulk of it. But within every church I've ever been in, it is not difficult to create a theological argument within the people present, because even within a single church, people don't all agree. There's projections and ideas and attempts to understand, but when it comes right down to it, there is not one understanding that everybody shares. Except maybe on some really broad points, like, and even then, even if you try to figure out a theological dogma that applies in all situations, regardless, no matter what, probably the divine being what it is, you will run smack into a situation that makes you question how literally that dogma can be applied and still be good. When an obvious one, I suppose, is thou shalt not kill. Well, what about in self-defense? Suddenly it's open to debate again, and that's just a real basic one. What if it's a parent protecting a child? Thou shalt not kill. Does that mean you stand by and watch your child be killed? There's so many parallels to that, and my point is not to throw it up as to say there is no truth, because I believe there is truth. But the thing I found in 50-some years of living through a wide variety of situations and diverse challenges is that truth is contextual. It depends on the context. And when you change the context, essentially you change the truth. If the context looks exactly like this and no other variables are admitted, I could reasonably expect that it would probably be answered this way. But the minute a new person walks into the situation who has a different experience, I have to rethink it all over again. And so that's where one of the primary qualities of spirituality needs to be discernment, but also openness to learning new things. But as one person said, not so open-minded that your brain fell out. I just thought that was funny, but it's the point being that we have a brain so that we can think through things. And we can consider what if, and what if, and what if. Well, yeah, but what if? And to consider all those things and come to a place of maturity where it's not about coming up with one answer that we slap on every situation. It's about being able to think within every situation we ever face. Being able to figure out, in this specific situation, how do I choose to respond? Sometimes it may be making a choice of being self-sacrificing. Sometimes it may be a choice of deciding to be selfish. I don't advocate selfish choices, but I can't say for sure whether one choice or the other is right in all circumstances. And ultimately, it's the person who is in those situations who needs to decide, because they're the one who's going to have to live with the consequences of whatever choice they make. In a similar sort of way, looking at being an individual, talking to a group, how do you recommend any one metaphor as the best? A lot of Christian metaphors are very patriarchal in nature, in that they project God as having masculine qualities and being of predominantly masculine personality and so forth. If I have to minister or try to encourage healing within a young woman who has been molested throughout her teenage years or younger even, how am I going to approach her and say, God is like your father? Well, not like your father. Definitely not like that. So then we have to come up with another metaphor so that this young woman can find healing from the ways that she has been violently violated. And that can happen on a psychological and emotional level without ever being physical also, and be just as damaging. It's the signature qualities of rape, in my opinion, are violence and violation. And it doesn't have to be physical to be just as damaging. In addressing spirituality with diverse individuals, however, it needs to come back to saying, what do you need? How do you understand love? Or do you understand love? How do you understand integrity? What feels right for you that may not be right for anyone else, but it feels right to you? And is it more effective for you to relate to the divine as some kind of super advanced human being, or as energy, or as wisdom, or as something beyond human comprehension, as divine mystery, whatever it is. I don't think that which is truly God cares how you perceive God as that you do. That you don't draw a circle around yourself and say, this is all that is known, all that can be known, all that will ever known, all that I will ever be. I mean, essentially you're choosing death at that point instead of embracing your life, whatever your life may include. Instead of being open to discovery and open to growth, to shut it all down and say, I can't deal with it. Because ultimately what you're saying is, I can't deal with life. I can't deal with living. And living and life are the incredible opportunity that each of us has been given to expand the universe, to expand human understanding, to expand anything we've ever been, and to go beyond anything we think we could ever be. Because once we get down to the practice of living, we may find that we go further than we ever thought we could. And that life could be the wisest and most loving teacher of all. But only when you're looking at the whole picture. To end with a blessing. And now may you be blessed with love and peace in the pursuit of your own dreams and in all your dealings with the diversity of humanity around you. Amen. A long day's ending and my mind's in a whirl. So many things went wrong. Or so it seems from where I stand and wish that I belonged. Unique and special, one of a kind, the labels that I hear from others trying to be nice, but of me unsure, unclear. Why am I such an anomaly, too different to fit in? All of this struggle wears me out. I don't know where to begin. Tell me, God, please tell me true, because you must have had a plan. The combination I find inside what you placed within this man. 100 different reasons and 1,000 different whys. Life unfolds in mystery, one day at a time. Just hold my hand and do your best, and give me your best tries. For I can work a miracle with every step you climb. To be original, a good thing they say, but reward few and far between. Listen to your inner muse and give us what we've already seen. Yet even when I at last give in and follow such confused advice, things go wrong, or at the very least resist going very nice. Why does it all have to be so hard? What is this struggle for? Others doing much the same seem to find each open door, while I keep running into walls and bruising black and blue, and wishing I could hear you say just what I am to do. 100 different reasons and 1,000 different whys. Life unfolds in mystery, one day at a time. Just hold my hand and do your best, and give me your best tries. For I can work a miracle with every step you climb. To be myself or someone else is a choice I have to make. Yet both are hard and costs are high in every step I take. If I am myself, they might not approve of what they see and hear. Yet if I try to be someone else, the result is pain and tears. Finding some joy or a bit of love is much harder than it seems. But finding you, God, is often within the discovery of my dreams, and reaching past all the rules I'm told, taking hold of a better me. Finding you there, patiently waiting for all that I can be. 100 different reasons and 1,000 different whys. Life unfolds in mystery, one day at a time. Just hold my hand and do your best, and give me your best tries. For I will work a miracle with every step you climb. Yes, I will work a miracle with every step you climb.